So the topic that is given to me is about the ethical aspects in scholarly publishing or academic writing. Unfortunately, in the morning when I was having a session, it got disconnected. So as a precaution, what I did is I have sent the presentations in the form of videos and the PPTs to the concerned organizers. So if at all it goes in between, please forgive me. You can get shared the content from the organizers. All the people can get it from them. So I'm just entering into my topic of today's talk. It is about ethical aspects in academic writing. So what I will do is I will explain in detail what exactly is the ethical aspects, and then gradually I will shift on to a software which will help you in avoiding certain blames that may occur in your career if at all you do some sort of a mischief of copying or something like that. So a software is there. I will introduce that software also, which will help you a lot in your research work. So basically it is about the ethical aspects in academic writing. So initially I am making a presentation on that, then I will demonstrate a software which will help you in doing away with the plagiarism aspect as such. So initially the presentation of the PPT, I will share my PPT now. PPT presentation on ethical aspects in academic writing. So when we think of academic integrity, integrity means truthfulness in academics and ethics in academic writing. The first thing that comes to our mind is plagiarism. No other way. Plagiarism is the foremost thing that comes in our mind, and you are aware of the various steps that has been taken to curb this menace of plagiarism. You should know that the University of Pune has the charge of maintaining a particular website also, like it's called UGC Care list of journals for finding good journals. So that way UGC is making up all efforts, all out efforts to curb the negative things in academic publishing. You know that there is a website having all the PhD thesis submitted to and awarded in the various universities in India called the Shodha Ganga. Why it is kept open? Basically, it is to make available the thesis and also to make people aware that none of the theses are having no such of a kind of similarity or plagiarism in the content. That is why it is made open. And today, if I am submitting a thesis to Shodhaganga, it should it should be checked for plagiarism, and it should be below below the standards, means above the standards provided by the UGC. UGC says it should not be 10%, 40%, like that. It says whatever it is. The concerned universities also can decide on it, and the percentage of similarity should be within that limit. So UGC, colleges, universities, everyone is taking their own part in curbing this menace of plagiarism. What exactly is plagiarism? Plagiarism is the act of presenting the words, ideas, images, sounds, and or the creative expression of others as your own. You can take content from anywhere; nobody will stop you. But when it is not your content, you have to say that. That's all. Everywhere you have to say that it is not mine and it is taken from somewhere, but that also has a limit. You cannot say that everywhere I have put a citation and reference and the 85% of the content is taken from somewhere. That doesn't help. So what you have to do is minimize the content that you are taking from outside and write on your own. That creativity of writing on your own is essential. Thereby you can avoid plagiarism. Another definition of plagiarism is the act of stealing someone's work. Stealing means chor karna hai, chor, else work, and attempting to pass it off as your own. This can apply to anything from term purpose. Term purpose means semester purpose of students, to photographs or songs or even ideas. Why I purposely put that word term purpose? Because you teachers feel that many of you are teachers or librarians listening to me. You should know that even the assignments and the exam purpose that they submit are subjected to should be subjected to a sort of plagiarism check. At least you should be vigilant on that. Otherwise, what will happen? You just listen to me. Two people are there in the final year exam of a medical course, A and B, and A knows that B has copied a lot of content from somewhere and created a dissertation and submitted for his final degree. A and B got their MBBS degree. Both of them are appearing for a post in Karnataka or Maharashtra for that matter. When they appear therefore, and B gets selected and A is not getting selected, and A knows that B has copied a lot of things in his dissertation during his PG degree. What will happen? Naturally, A can go to the court or to the public domain and say that this fellow who has got selected as a doctor in that college, in that institute, has copied his dissertation, and I know it. And if it is subjected to a similarity check, naturally the person is caught. So even the dissertations or assignments in the classrooms also can be subjected to a plagiarism check in future. So teachers have to be very serious about the assignments that are being submitted, because the teacher himself is evaluating it. So you are the person who is responsible for the marks that you are giving for that dissertation. Be careful. Now comes, how bad is plagiarism? What is the negative part of play? What will happen if plagiarism is found out? Plagiarism is theft of intellectual property. Intellectual property means the thought process. Plagiarism is cheating, outright cheating. Plagiarism may result in receiving a failing grade or zero for the assignment. You can give, if somebody is caught plagiarizing, you can give outright a failing grade or a zero for the assignment. Plagiarism could result in disciplinary actions. Naturally, if you are a working person, your job is gone. Your job outrightly, but you should be found what is that, doing that criminal act of plagiarism. Students caught plagiarizing may be denied admittance to further academic courses. Yeah, they will not get admission, and people have lost their positions and on. There are many examples which we can say about the negative, the impact of plagiarism in their life. There are many such instances. I don't want to describe all those things. Two types of plagiarism are there. One is intentional, purposely you are doing it, means it is intentional plagiarism. Copying a friend's work, you just copy from somebody and submit. Doing your friend's homework, I'm talking about the students. Doing your friend's homework, you are doing it for somebody else. It's not copying, but somebody else is doing it for you. There is plagiarism. Buying or borrowing papers. If an agency is there who is helping in writing and all, if you buy from them a paper and try to publish it, that is again plagiarism. Cutting and pasting blocks of text from electronic sources without documenting them. Control C, Control V, the familiar keyboard shortcuts for everyone. Control C, Control V. You can copy and paste it into your write-up. You forget it. No, that is not going to help you. That somebody will find it and somebody will be finding the similarity, and you will be responsible for the plagiarism blame. Then media borrowing. If at all you are taking a picture from somewhere, you have to say, I have taken the picture from that particular document. This way you have to say it. All these are coming under intentional plagiarism. Purposely you are doing it. Whereas unintentional plagiarism is that you do not know, you have forgotten or something like that. You just careless paraphrasing. You have taken something from somewhere, you are introducing it in your writer, but you forgot to do it properly, a careless nature. Then poor documentation. If you are taking from somewhere, you have to give all the details to reach there. The reader should know that it is taken from there. So it is called proper documentation. Quoting excessively. Another important thing is your paper. One fellow came to me and asked, sir, I have a research paper. 85% I have taken from outside, and everywhere in this 85% I have provided citation and reference to avoid plagiarism. 15% is my content. Is it acceptable? Of course, it is not at all acceptable. It cannot be accepted. That is what quoting excessively. You are not supposed to quote excessively. To support your arguments, you take minimum and then present it in your write-up. It should be 15 to 85. It is okay. In my opinion, some people may not agree to that also. So I suggest always 15. Okay, you can quote the similarity extent can go to 15 percentage. You won't believe in Goa University, our similarity extent is 3 percentage. We won't allow anything beyond 3 percentage in the entire thesis for PhD. 3 percentage is the allowed similarity in Goa University, and for the last 4 or 5 years, we never accepted anything within beyond 3 percentage. And the average percentage of similarity now what we have is 1.72. After adding up and dividing by the number of theses, I got the number 1.72. And when you don't use your own ideas, again it is becoming plagiarism. You have to have your own ideas, otherwise academic writing is actually knowledge sharing, new knowledge sharing. There you have to use your own ideas. Methods of adoption of ideas from others. When we take ideas from a literature which you have downloaded or you got from a journal, you do it in three different ways. One is quoting. Quoting means you take it as such and use it. It's called quoting. So actually you are copying and pasting it in your write-up as such. It can be done as such. That is called verbatim copying. When you copy the end, I will come to that. So these are the three methods: quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Quoting means quotations are the exact words of an author copied directly from a source, word by for word. Quotations must be cited. So naturally, it is a copy of the entire thing as such from there, and then it should be cited. Cited means I will explain it a little later. While quoting, people copy as such and is called as verbatim copying. If you are copying as such, it is called as verbatim copying. When will we quote? When you want to quote, you wanted to add the power of an author's words to support your argument. If you want some support from someone, another author, he might have supported your not your argument, he might have an argument earlier which will support your argument, then you can quote it. You want to disagree with an author's argument, there also you can bring that idea here. You want to highlight particularly eloquent or powerful phrases or passages. If somebody is talking too much about something, you can take some idea and put it there. You are comparing and contrasting specific points of view, there also you can quote from that author. You want to note the important research that precedes your own. That is the basic idea of a literature review portion in your thesis. You wanted to note the important research that precedes, that has been done earlier in your area, then you have to provide that content there. And in foreign countries, Western countries, if you are copying more than 7 words, you are supposed to give explanation for that. Do not copy more than 3 consecutive words from a source. I am saying 3 words, not 7 words. 3 words consecutively. If it is coming, you have to explain why it is. So be careful about what exactly it is. Verbatim copying as such from the source. In such a situation, you have to put copied content in double inverted commas and provide in-text citation. So if you are copying as such without any change, you are taking some content from somewhere, you have to put double inverted commas in the beginning, and then you have to provide inverted commas. And one thing you have to remember, if the number of words is within 40, that means up to 39, you can continue along with the reading text. You can continue with the running text. You need not separate it. Whereas if the number of words in the verbatim copied content goes beyond 39 words, it should be kept as a separate quote. It should be kept as a separate quote with inverted commas in the beginning and end. I will show you that when I do it practically. I will show that. So verbatim copying can be done. Verbatim copying means copying as such. It can be done in 2 ways. One is copying. See, if the number of words is within 40 up to 39, you can go along with the running text. Whereas if it goes beyond 39, that is from 40 onwards, you have to keep it as a separate quote. I will show you that later on. And in both cases, you have to provide citation. in-text citation. That means within bracket you used to provide the first name of the author, second name of the author, comma, year of publication. Same way you will be providing everywhere in both cases. Even if it is 39 or even if it is 40 or more, you have to provide inverted commas in the beginning and the end, and also you have to provide citation, in-text citation. And at the end of the document, you have to provide full bibliographic details. It is called a reference. So reference and citation will tell the reader that the author has taken the content from that particular document, and it should have everything in detail. If you hide something, you are doing a wrong thing. Now comes paraphrasing. What does paraphrasing means? Paraphrasing is actually you read the content from a different author and you assimilate it, you understand it, and then you write it in your own language. That is called a paraphrasing. In paraphrasing, if you are doing paraphrasing, there is no number limit and all. Whatever it is, you need not put inverted commas. But at the end, you have to provide citation, in-text citation within bracket, author's name and year of publication, and it depends on the style that follow. I will come to that also later on. And at the end, you have to provide the bibliographic details, reference details. That is how it is to be done in the case of paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is restating text, giving the meaning in another form. Actually, it is the same idea, but you are writing in your own line. Then you paraphrase when you use text written by another person. Rewrite the text in your own words. Paraphrasing shows that you have read and understood the original text rather than repeating it word by word. So that means by paraphrasing, it is understood that you have read it and you understood the content. In such a situation, you have to put the copied content within in-text with the in-text citation. No need for inverted commas. So in the case of paraphrased text, there is no need for inverted commas, but citation and reference are required. There is something called summarizing. Suppose you have read 2 pages of a text, 2 pages. You have read, you understood everything, and when you write in your writer, you write it in 1 paragraph. So from 2 pages, you have condensed the content or summarized the content to 1 paragraph. Now, what is the situation? Whether you should give citation and reference because you have written in your own language? Yes. In the case of summarization also, what you have to do is you don't need to put inverted commas. But at the end, you have to provide citation as well as the detailed reference details at the end. Then the question comes, should I cite everything? Everything is to be cited or not? That question can come because if you are saying Gandhi is the father of the nation, does it require a citation or reference? Actually, the answer is no. If something you write is common knowledge, you need not provide a citation. If things are, it's a particular knowledge that everyone knows, why should you provide citation and reference? If you are doing in-text citations, you don't have to cite facts that are widely known. Facts that are widely known. For example, New Delhi, the capital of India. You need not provide a citation or reference for that. It's in fact widely known. Information or judgments considered as common knowledge. So if some information is there or judgment is there, which is considered as common knowledge, there is no need for providing citation or reference. So for example, Mahatma Gandhi is considered as our father of the nation. Japanese attacked the Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. These are common knowledge. If you see a fact in 3 or more sources, another important thing is how will you understand if it's a common knowledge or not? Gandhi is the father of the nation, everyone knows. So no need of confusion. Whereas there are certain ideas which you do not know whether it is common knowledge or not. If that is the case, there is a criteria that if you are finding some information in 3 or more sources and you are fairly certain that your readers are already knowing this as information, you are publishing an article and the article will be read by many people and they know that this information is common knowledge and it appears, you have seen it appearing in 3 or more publications. That time you can say that it is common knowledge because you have a doubt whether it is common knowledge or not. So you also know that people, many of them are knowing about this concept. Then it is a common. Now, if you feel that no, I'm really confused whether it is common knowledge or not. If that is the case, what you will do? Of course, it is if you are in doubt, never hesitate to provide citation and reference. You provide citation and reference, you can escape that situation. Don't be confused. Just put your citation and reference. That's all. Do I have to cite everything? You are discussing your own experience. For example, if you are discussing your own experiences as in a diary or a journey, all those things doesn't need a citation, observations or reactions. You are actually conducting an experiment and then you are writing the observations on that. You don't need to provide citation. Compiling the results of your original research from science experiments, etc. You are using common knowledge. In that case also, you don't need to provide citation. Now, there is a concept called the padding of bibliography. I will explain it in a minimum way. Suppose you are writing an article after conducting a research. For that research, actually, you have referred to 12 articles. So in your references, naturally, there should be only 12 items in the reference list. But to show that you are a good reader, you are a good researcher, what you have done, you have added some 18 more items, and then you have added everything there. So now the list is with 30 items, 30, even though your original research, you have referred only to 12 items. You have shown that I have read many things, I am a good reader, but that is actually again against the ethics of academic writing, and that is concept is called padding of bibliography. Understood? This is what it is. Now, as you are aware, with the internet, when I started my career 36 years, it was very difficult to identify or get a document that is published in America or Japan, even after 5 years. You will never come to know what is happening in America or even Russia or in other countries, because it is very difficult. Time, distance, language, these were the troublemakers at that time. Now, after 36 years, for me, if you want an article that is published in America, I need two or three mouse clicks. Within that time, I will get the article in front of your computer screen. And that's the wonder that internet has brought out. So you are in the sea or ocean of information. You will get everything, and you will be prompted to copy paste into your write-up. But believe it or not, the same internet will be troubling you if you copy from somewhere, and it will detect the similarity in your write-up. There are software tools which will identify the similarity, extent of similarity, how much you have copied and where from you have copied. It will also show the links. This is what he has taken, intentionally or unintentionally. If you have done it, it will take you to those websites and show the teacher or the authority. Suppose you are submitting a thesis to your university, the university will find that you have copied from somewhere else. So it is a double-edged knife. On either side, it is what internet, because from one side it is giving everything, from the other side it is detecting everything. So be very careful, teachers, students, everyone, research scholars especially, be careful about the situation that even though internet is helping you a lot, it is also troubling you by allowing you to be detected with similarity. There are softwares, they are Authenticate, Turnitin, Urkund, etc. Out of this, nowadays, the UGC, since we are submitting our dissertations and thesis to Shodhaganga, they have given us free access to Urkund software. So the university librarians are in charge of give access to this particular software, Urkund, with which we can detect the similarity. So whatever research reports are coming to the university in the form of PhD thesis or MPhil dissertations or PG dissertation, we subject them to similarity checking using Urkund. authenticate and turn it in are also are good, very good, but they are costly compared to Urkund. That's why the UGC has gone for Urkund. That also detects the similarity. And do you know the importance of having CCTVs everywhere? Because of CCTVs, we will be tempted not to do any mistake. We will try not to do mistakes because the CCTV is recording it. Similarly, don't believe that Urkund may detect everything, but this acts as a deterrent. This stops you from doing negative things. That is what the importance of plagiarism checking. So be aware of it, and then you teach your students also not to do play similar this copying business, and because there are detectors for this. Yeah, so this is the presentation on ethical aspects in academic writing, and how to avoid this particular similarities in your research report. What I will do is I have a solution called Mendeley, which will help you in many ways as a researcher or a student. You can make use of Mendeley, the software Mendeley. I will be just explaining how you can use that software and to avoid the similarity in your research reports. So I will be just closing this and I will be opening my screen to show EndNote. So to get EndNote, you have to go to www.mendeley.com. www.mendeley.com. If you type in the web address bar of the browser, you will get this page. And here in a red box, it says create a free account, which means the account is free. You can create an account with Mendeley free of cost. Nobody will stop you. Only thing is you have to have an email ID. That's all. Then when you click there, it will ask for some details. For example, I'll just click on this. Hope this is visible. Can somebody respond?
Yes, sir, you are visible. Please continue, sir.
Okay, okay. Oh, the screen is visible. Okay. Here
Yes,
you have to give your email ID. Then after that, I cannot continue because it's very simple process. Anybody can register in that. Once you give email ID, it will ask for your affiliation, which institute you are working in, what is your profession, what is your subject area, some minimum things it will ask, and you will be given an online account. So what I will do is I will just show my online account. I'll just go back and show you my online account. Yeah, here I can click on the sign in. I will type my email ID. Somebody is marking on the screen. Click on the continue button. So I have given my email ID and click on the continue button. Naturally, it will ask for my password. Click on sign in. So it is asking to confirm my email because I have not confirmed it earlier. Within 2 seconds, I will confirm it. So once I confirmed it, I have entered into the Mendeley, my Mendeley account. You can see this is my, can you see my screen? Download Mendeley.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is my account. You can see my picture there. All the details are there. This is the online account. And similarly, what you can do is when you go there, you can see I will just type www.mendeley.com. There is a button for downloading something, download a software, or else at the end it will be there. Here it is there. Get reference manager. By clicking it here, you will get a small software. It's not that small. 53 MB it is in size, and it can be downloaded and installed in your system. Then you will get a software in your system also, as well as you have this online account. Two things are there. One is an online account, and the other one is see, you can see my name and all. So this is my online account. Simultaneously, I have a software that is installed into my system. Now what I will do is I will open that. I have already downloaded and installed it because it may take time. So I downloaded it and installed in my system, and I am logging into my Mendeley software that I have installed here, and I am trying to tell you how it works. Okay, so what I will do is I will open it up. I will stop sharing this, and I will go for sharing my that particular software. I'm just opening Mendeley. Installing a software is not a big issue for anybody for that matter. Yeah, I'm just it's asking for my sign in and the password. I'm not sure, may not be showing it. Librarian at
Sir, your screen is not sharing, sir.
yeah, I will share. I will share.
Yeah. Okay.
After logging in, I will share.
Fine, sir. Fine, sir.
Yeah, I'm logging in. Yes, I have logged in. I will just show you now. The end node, sorry, this Mendeley interface is looking like this. I'm sharing it. Hope this is visible. This interface is visible now, isn't it? Mendeley desktop is written there. That means it is not internet. It is on your system. It is working. Mendeley desktop. Can you see this? Listen, Dr. D'Souza, can you see this?
Yes, sir. We can.
Okay. So the screen is there. Mendeley desktop, file, edit, view, tools, help, and some buttons are here. And there is an option called a literature search. All documents recently added. All those things are there. I will come to those things one by one. Here there is a small window. Here there is the library window. Here there is the metadata window. I will just come to all these things one by one. So here what I am going to do is click here. And I wanted to know about what research has been done on the topic of webinars, because webinars are many happening. I wanted to do a research on what is the impact of webinar during this pandemic period. So I will just type the word webinar here. So what you have to do is click here in the literature search, and in this small text box you have to type webinar and press enter key. You can see that 1668 articles are there. Out of that, some may not be that useful and all, but you can just see. First is here. I will just select this. Here the title is incomplete. Use of the is there, and some names are not clear. International Journal of Radiation Applications and Instrumentation, something is there. You can see here there is a word webinar coming here. That is why it has come up here. Doesn't matter. By reading this abstract, you can understand that it is useful or not for your research. Okay. Then because it is incomplete, I am just leaving this. I am going to another item. Here also, ease of use of usefulness of webinars in an open discussion. So that is that one. So here you do not know. For example, page numbers are not there, volume number is not there, issue number is not there, and it says it's a conference proceeding. Then volume number won't be there. Now, to get the full details, what you have to do is come down here. There is an option called DOI. The full form of DOI is Digital Object Identifier, and this is the single address for a document on the internet. DOI is the single identifier for a document. With this number, you can identify that item. You just copy and paste this into the Google. You will get that. Means it's a link you will get surely. If it is a free item, you will get the document itself. Now, to make this complete, you can come to the right hand side here. There is a lens like structure. Click on it. It says lookup succeeded. That means this has gone into the internet and found out even the page number has been brought here. So this is an updated metadata. Metadata means description of the document. This is required when you create the reference list. Clear? So now if you, after reading this, you felt that this is good for your research, you can click on this button, save reference. So here you can see a blue tick mark also has come. Now comes to the next one. Here also what you can do is volume. It's a journal article. Its volume number, issue number, pages are not there. Come down, go to this, click on this. See, every details has been brought from the publisher's website. That easy it is. Now you feel that it is good, click here. There also a blue tick mark is there. Blended learning. Let us see here. Yes, it also has a DOI. Click on this. It also succeeded. Yes. Now you need not click here. What you can do is you can bring your cursor here. When it comes up here, it becomes a hand-like structure. Click on it. There also that blue is coming. Now this is something about mathematics classroom. Much details are not there. Even DOI is also not there. Then it is difficult. If you want this, you can go to the Google, find out the entire details from Google, and there will be DOI. That you can copy and paste here. You double click here and paste it, means it will, you can bring the entire details from the publisher by that. Now, yeah, webinar, education through global collaboration. There is another one. Again, I am just clicking this. See, it has brought all the details. Again, one more thing is there. There is also DOI. So you have to update the details. Always you have to do it. This also. Now coaching primary. No, it is not there. No. Yeah, evaluating webinar based teaching. Select it. But before that, what you have to do is update the details. So what is shown here is only 25 out of 1668. Professional development for pharmacists. Again, something is there. You can select it. Yeah. So these are all actually. See, one more. I will just, for the namesake. So 25 only you have seen. Where is the rest of the things? Here there is the option load more results. Click on it. After the 25, you will get another set of items. Again, you have to go there and then select items which are useful for your research. You have to read the abstract. Then only you can say that it is good. Like that, you do it. So now 50 has come. Again, click, another 25 will come. Like that, you can go up to 1668 and identify. It's a huge resource. You are coming to know about the availability of literature on your topic of research. Then naturally, whenever I teach these, people ask, sir, where you will get the full text of these items? That is a regular question which I face. Then I will say, if it is free, you will get from the Google or anywhere from the internet. Whereas, if it is not available, you have to subscribe for it. You have to depend on your librarian for this. There is no other way. Librarians are meant for getting these things for you. They are designed for this. They are being taught for helping you with literature. You have to depend on your librarian alone. They will. You can also ask your guide, if he is having a copy of it, he can give. Otherwise, librarian is the source who can help you in getting these articles. I think you got the idea now how to select items here. Then now go to all documents. After literature search, when you click on all documents, those items which you have selected are now here. They are saved here. Understood? And now, if you want to make a list, select one and press Ctrl A and right click, copy as formatted citation. You have copied this entire thing and you wanted to show this as a list to your guide. Open MS Word. I am opening MS Word. I'll show that. Shared my MS Word window. and here I am just pasting what I have copied from there. See, the entire thing is here now. That is a list which you can show, and this can be called as a reading list because you have just started your research only. You have not finished it. If you finished your research, it becomes a reference list. But this is a reading list which you have created now. So this software helps you to know what is available on a topic of research. So it gives you all the details and it goes by a particular style. I'll tell you what is the style little later. I will come back to Mendeley. Yeah, I'm on Mendeley now. If you look at here, view citation style, you can see it is IEEE style. That is why it has shown with numbers. Whereas if you go by American Psychological Association and all, it will not be like that. I'll just show that also. Right click, copy as formatted citation, go to MS Word. I will show that MS Word. I'm showing MS Word again and I am pasting that whatever I have copied. See the difference? There is no numbers. There are no numbers. So this looks like a pakka formatted list. This is how you can create a reading list. I'm not calling it as a reference list because we have not conducted the research. Now coming back to Mendeley. Now the question is, we can use this software for citations and references. Already in my earlier presentation, I have told that when you copy content from somebody else, copy, paraphrase, or summarize, in all these three occasions, you have to provide in-text citation within bracket or number or anything. According to the style, you have to provide in-text citation. And at the end, you have to provide the bibliographic details. That is called the references. But when you do that, you have to follow certain styles. Just now I have shown you APA style. When you do APA style, your guide may say, no, you follow MLA style. Sometimes he will say different style, Chicago manual. There are different styles. But with this software, you can instantly change from one style to another. This is what I am going to teach you now. What you have to do is, first, in Mendeley itself, there is something called a tools option. Here there is an option called install MS Word plugin. So while doing this, you have to see that MS Word software is closed. That's all you have to do. It should not be open. I have already closed it. So now click on this install MS Word plugin. So a message like this will come and click OK. That's all you have to do. Now I can use MS Word for inserting in-text citations and creating bibliography using this particular software. This is what I am going to show you. So what you have to do is now open MS Word. I will open MS Word. I will go from here. I'm opening MS Word again. I'm sharing that. So this is our common MS Word. Everyone knows about it. I need not describe much. And here, when you click on references, you can see that a new set of commands have been installed here. Under references, it is called Mendeley Cytomatic. Mendeley Cytomatic. So here, insert citation, undo, refresh, export as, insert bibliography, open Mendeley, and style. All these things are there. So now what I am going to do is I am opening my research paper. I will open my research paper and I will try to insert citation from the one that I have just now checked. So what I am going to do is I am going to open that file. Open. Can you see this? Survey on the usefulness.
Yeah.
Dr.
Yes, sir, we can.
Yeah, is it visible?
The word is visible, sir. Yes.
No, but this survey of usefulness.
No, not yet, sir.
Not yet, not yet. Okay, that's why I asked. Again, I will share. Okay, this is the file that I have just opened, and it is a survey on the usefulness of webinars during the lockdown among library science professionals. So here in this case, I am saying this paragraph I have taken from another author. Okay, and it is when I counted it, the number of words in this paragraph is coming to 36. That means it is below 39, below 40. So if that is the case, this is copied as such from a particular author. So what you have to do, you have to put inverted commas at the end as well as in the beginning first, and it is only 36 words. So directly you can insert the citation here. So I remember some names. Some names I remember from the authors whom we have selected in Mendeley. We have some, how many we have selected? Do you remember? Around 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 items we have taken from internet. The bibliographic details, it is there in the Mendeley. So here what you have to do is go to references, and among this group there is a command called insert citation. And if you don't remember the name of the author, you can click on go to Mendeley. It will take you to Mendeley, and then you have to select the author, Verma, Anuradha Verma, and all. You can just select this and click on the cite button here. Click on the cite. And now you can see Verma and Singh, 2010 has been added here. I will just highlight it so that you can easily see it. So this is a paragraph which is totally copied as such from another source written by Verma and Singh, which was published in 2010, and the number of words in paragraph is below 39. That is why I did colon here, the inverted comma and inverted comma at the end, and then this. This is what you have to do. Now, another paragraph is there. This paragraph is coming to around 53. 53 words are there in this paragraph. I'll just highlight it. In this paragraph, 53 words are. That means it has gone above 39. Means 40 onwards it is separate. So what you have to do is, first you have to make it into a block quote. Block quote means you have to select it and click it like this. So it should be separate like this, and here you have to put the inverted comma in the beginning as well as end, and then go to references, insert citation, go to Mendeley, select the authors, and click on the cite button in Mendeley. You can see that it is coming up here. Okay, so here what has happened is the number of words has gone beyond 39. That is why it is taken as a separate quote. Now here I have a paragraph. Here I have a paragraph. This entire paragraph I have paraphrased, written in my own language. Does it need a inverted comma? No, it doesn't need an inverted comma, but it needs a citation. So what you have to do, if you remember the name of, what you can do is just type that. For example, I remember the name of Rahman. So I'll just type here R-A-H. Yes, you can see that the article has come here, and click on OK. It has come here. So this way I have brought it, and here I have not put inverted commas because it is a paraphrased text. So 3 types. One is verbatim copying below 39, below 40, verbatim copying above 40, paraphrased content, and finally I am going for showing a content that is summarized. So I will say that, yeah, a particular paragraph. I'm just taking this paragraph. I am saying that this is a summarized content. In that case also you need not provide citation or reference. Sorry, you provide inverted commas, but citation and references are required. Click on insert citation, go to Mendeley and select one item which you feel that you have copied from there or taken content from there, and it is there. Now after everything, you have provided 4 citations. Now to go to the end of the document, here what you have to do is you need the list of references. So you can just type references, press enter key, and here you get the insert bibliography option. You can see that the entire bibliography is inserted and the style is according to APA style, APA, American Psychological Association style. And your guide says, no, I don't like this style. You go for Chicago manual. Select it. It gets changed to Chicago manual. If he changes his mind again, you can go for Modern Language Association also the way you want it. So this way, you can format your references and citations and references according to certain styles. This is what Mendeley is useful for. So first it is helping. Now I will go from, I will stop this and I will go back to Mendeley. This is the cite button. When you come from Mendeley, there will be a cite button here with 2 inverted commas. That is what you have to click for taking the citations there. So this software helps you to search for literature and its details. Details means metadata, and it gives you a big list of items. You have to go select one by one, and then you make use of it in identifying documents useful for your research, and then you can put citations and references in the write-up according to certain styles. So this will help you from avoiding the blame of plagiarism later on. So MS Word helps you to maintain the standard of academic writing. So this is what I have to say about ethical aspects in academic writing. So in plain language, I have provided you the details in my presentation, and I have performed how EndNote can be used for inserting citations and creating bibliographies so that you can avoid the blame of plagiarism. So here ends my presentation. So this is again a simple search box, and Google Scholar has a facility, and it is also, you might have heard of citation indices like Scopus as well as Web of Science. Scopus and Web of Science, what they do is, suppose you are A is writing an article and A is quoting B and C. B and C are getting citation from A. Understood? And the number of citations one person gets is considered as a quantity for their research productivity. Quality of research is based on the number of citations a person gets. So as I said, A is writing an article, A is quoting from B and C. So both B and C are getting citations. If B is getting 20 citations and C is getting only 8 citations from different people, we can call it as B is a better author than C. Clear? So an agency should quantify this. They have to collect these details. How many citations A is getting, how many citations B is getting, how many citations C is getting. All these somebody should monitor and collect and index it. And it is being done by 2 agencies. One is called Scopus, which is a product of the Elsevier, a major publisher, and next is Web of Science. Web of Science is a product of, is a service of Clarivate Analytics, and they index and keep everything intact, and then they arrange it according to the number of citations. When the number of citations and the rank collide, that number is called H-index. So same service, when the number of citations and the rank, when they collide, that number is called as H-index. So here, when these are 2 major agencies and they are, for example, if you want to get access to Scopus, a university has to pay 25 lakhs minimum for getting access to Scopus. Very difficult. Whereas Web of Science, universities are getting through InflipNet service. We are getting it. So in that, for science, there is a separate citation index. It is called Science Citation Index. Within that, there is another citation index called Social Science Citation Index. Arts and Humanities Citation Index is there, and Emerging Sources Citation Index is also there. Emerging sources means they are not considered as good such resources, but gradually they are likely to enter into the earlier three one: Science Citation, Social Science Citation Index, or Humanities and Social Science, Arts and Humanities Citation Index. They are called emerging sources of index. Then, since these are costly affairs, Google has brought out its own facility to index citations. That is called the Google service. So what you can do is you can create your own profile and add your articles into this. So whenever somebody is citing your article somewhere on and it is available online, all of a sudden you will get a citation for your article in Google Scholar. So you are having a separate citation index within Google, in Google Scholar. Now I'm just going to search for some item from, for example, webinar only. I will type in this. Let us see. Yes, use of the webinar tool. And here it's a PDF file, freely it is available. That is why it says PDF. And this you wanted to use it in your writer along with the references. So what you can do is you can come here. There is an inverted comma here. Double inverted comma. Click on this. You will get this index. Sorry, I will do it again. Yeah, this type of a window will come, and here it says it is APA style is there. You just click on it, right click, copy. You can take this information and put it in your reference. Easily you can take it. Or what you can do is, here there is something called the BibTeX. You download this, and once it is it's not good. What I will do is I will go for EndNote option, and you can see a small software item has been downloaded. This has to be carried on to EndNote or my Mendeley, and you can add it there. So this way you can use Google Scholar for identifying documents on your topic of research. So many things are, so these are two services. Basically it is maintaining the profile of you. You see, in my case, some of the articles I have uploaded, the details are here. You can see see the number of citations I received. All those things are there, and my list of articles are also listed here. You can see them, and which is the highest one. This particular article has got 17 citations so far. And when I click on this 17, I will come to know who are all have done it. So these are the articles cited me in this particular topic. And here there is another one which has got 9 citations. This star means I have a co-author also, like that. So these many are there. So in 2009 itself, I got 6 citations, 19. So still it is in 2020, there are no. So this is actually maintained by Google. But there could be some other citations which has not been taken up by Google, because it is available only in the form of printed. Not online it is available. It is only in print form available. That's why it is not coming here. Otherwise, it is just the citations and all. It will be bringing here only if it is available online. So this is what Google Scholar means. So scholarly materials will be available there. Google actually keeps a track of your citations, and you can have a profile of your own. You can also create your profile, and it will add your citations here. So along with Scopus, Web of Science, Google citations are also now being considered. But many people do not believe that the citations are not the original measure for quantifying the quality of research. They feel that it's not. So they suggest that if at all a document is forwarded from one email to another, if it is opened by somebody, if it is downloaded by somebody, if it is viewed by somebody, you have to count all those things. How many times people liked your article? For example, if you create a video and put it in your YouTube, you will get likes. Like the pictures that you put in Facebook, you will get likes. So how many? So there is a, which is the best photo? Those who are getting more likes are considered as best photos. Similarly, here also articles which get more likes can be considered as a. So that type of a measurements also are now coming up, and it is not based on the citations, and that metrics is called alt metrics. Alt metrics. So these are different things. Anyway, this is what I can talk about Google Scholar. Many other things are there. So